Playing with Power MTG. Powerful cards, powerful formats. Be sure to check out Dragon Shield for all of the best accessories to protect your decks. TCG Player for cards at great prices while supporting local game stores. And Patreon, where you get awesome benefits for your direct support. It was always a bit of a running gag in our Discord to say that Teshar, Ancestor's Apostle, was not a viable CEDH commander. Due to being a mono-white commander, he lacked many of the resources needed to be considered viable from a combo standpoint. Most mono-white decks can get away with being viable stacks commanders, but Teshar wants to do combo things. After these jokes ran their course in our Discord, we issued a challenge. Build a viable Teshar commander, and we will put it on an episode. We weren't gonna go easy on Teshar though. We told them that we will be bringing some powerful decks to the table to battle it out to prove Teshar's worth. So, they built the commander, and now we will see whether or not it holds up tonight. To get access to our Discord and play games like this, sign up to our Patreon. Our Patreon offers tons of benefits, including Discord access and live streaming, behind the scenes footage, raw gameplay, additional gameplay series, merchandise discounts, and archive footage of old games as well. We have tiers at all budgets, so sign up today. If you cannot help out financially, liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and sharing these videos goes such a long way as well. Now, let's start out by showcasing our fighters this evening. First, we have our patron Ben, piloting Teshar, Ancestor's Apostle. This is a mono-white artifact reanimator deck that utilizes a lot of combo lines in conjunction with Teshar to win the game. His opening hand contains a Plains, Ancient Den, Jeweled Lotus, Cloud Key, Board the Weatherlight, Stanheim Cursor, and his London Mulligan is a Plains. Next, we have our patron Zach, piloting the partner pair of Tymna the Weaver and Thrasios Triton Hero. This is a mid-range deck called Razakats. It gets its name from using Razakat the Foul-Blooded to tutor and assemble multiple combos. His opening hand contains an Elvish Mystic, Finehorn Elves, Mana Crypt, Lion's Eye Diamond, Flooded Strand, Hallowed Fountain, and his London Mulligan is a Breeding Pool. After that, we have another patron, Blair, piloting the partner pair of Tymna the Weaver and Kraum Ludovic's Opus. This is a turbo ad nauseum list called Blue Farm. It seeks to resolve ad nauseum or grind advantage through the commanders in the command zone. Her opening hand contains a Misty Rainforest, Arcane Signet, Brainstorm, Lotus Petal, Underworld Breach, Fiery Islet, and her London Mulligan is a Windswept Heath. Finally, we have Ryan, piloting Urza, Lord High Artificer. This is a combo deck that uses Polymorph to cheat a Tidespout Tyrant onto the battlefield, producing infinite mana and then using Urza's abilities to finish the game. His opening hand contains a Winter Orb, Proteus Staff, Snow-Covered Island, Delay, Swan Song, Muddle the Mixture, and a Mana Crypt. Without further ado, let's begin this warm, welcoming, wise, world-class war of wits. Ben was able to do the chicken dance the best, and gets to start us off. Ben draws a card for turn and plays a Plains. He casts an Ether Vial. The table jokes that they didn't know that they were playing against Legacy Death and Taxes this game, and Ben passes the turn. Blair draws a card for turn and plays a Fiery Islet. She casts a Lotus Petal. She ends the turn. Ryan draws a card for turn and plays a Snow-Covered Island. He casts a Mana Crypt. He casts a Winter Orb. He passes to Zach. Zach draws a card for turn and plays a Flooded Strand. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a tropical island onto the battlefield. He casts an Elvish Mystic. He casts a Mana Crypt. He casts a Lion's Eye Diamond. He passes. During his upkeep, Ben puts a charge counter onto Aether Vial. He draws and plays an Ancient Den. He casts a Board the Weatherlight. He looks at the top 5 and puts an Ashnod's Altar into his hand. Ben ends the turn. Blair draws and taps Fiery Islet to cast Brainstorm. She draws 3 and puts 2 back on top. She plays a Misty Rainforest. She cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up an Underground Sea onto the battlefield. She casts a Dark Ritual. Blair makes 3 black and then uses it to cast an Arcane Signet. She cracks Lotus Petal for a white and casts her commander, Tymna the Weaver. She passes. During his upkeep, Ryan loses his Mana Crypt flip and takes 3 damage. He draws, takes no game actions, and ships the turn to Zach. During his upkeep, Zach loses his Mana Crypt flip and takes 3 damage. He draws and plays a Hallowed Fountain untapped, paying 2 life. He casts his commander, Thrasios Triton Hero. He casts a Finehorn Elves. He passes. During his upkeep, Ben puts another charge counter onto Ether Vial. He draws and plays a Plains. He casts a Soul Ring. He casts a Cloud Key, naming artifact as it enters. He ends the turn. Blair draws and moves to combat. She attacks Ryan with Tymna. Ryan takes it and Blair gains 2. At the beginning of her second main phase, she pays 1 life and draws a card through Tymna. She plays a Volcanic Island and passes to Ryan. During his upkeep, Ryan loses his Mana Crypt flip and takes 3 damage. Ryan draws, sighs, and passes. During his upkeep, Zach wins his Mana Crypt flip. He draws and plays a Scalding Tarn. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up an underground sea onto the battlefield. He ends the turn. During his upkeep, Ben puts a charge counter onto Ether Vial. He draws, holds open mana, and ships the turn to Blair. Blair draws and plays a Wooded Foothills. She cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a plateau onto the battlefield. She taps Fiery Islet to cast her other commander, Kraum, Ludovic's Opus. She moves to combat and attacks Zach with Kraum and Ryan with Tymna. In response, Ryan casts Rapid Hybridization, targeting Kraum. Blair responds by casting Deflecting Swat for its alternate cost, targeting Rapid Hybridization. In response, Zach casts Fierce Guardianship for its alternate cost as well, targeting Swat. Guardianship counters Swat, Hybridization destroys Kraum, and Blair creates a Frog Lizard token. Ryan then takes the hit from Tymna, and Blair gains 2 life. At the beginning of her second main phase, she pays 1 and draws 1 through Tymna. She passes. During his upkeep, Ryan wins his Mana Crypt flip. He draws, groans at his misfortune, and passes the turn. At the end of Ryan's turn, Zach activates Thrasios. He scries 1 and reveals a Polluted Delta, putting it onto the battlefield tapped. During his upkeep, Zach wins his Mana Crypt flip. He draws and casts his other commander, Tymna the Weaver. He moves to combat and attacks Ryan with Thrasios. Ryan takes it, and at the beginning of his second main phase, Zach pays a life and draws a card through Tymna. He casts a Soul Ring and ends his turn. At the end of Zach's turn, Ben activates Ether Vial. He puts a Ranger Captain of Eos onto the battlefield. It triggers, and he fetches up a Walking Ballista into his hand. Ben draws and plays a Plains. He casts an Ashnod's Altar. He passes to Blair. Blair draws and plays a Gemstone Caverns. She moves to combat and attacks Ryan with Tymna and Zach with the Frizzard. They both take it, and Blair gains 2 life. At the beginning of her second main phase, Blair triggers Tymna and holds priority. She casts an Enlightened Tutor. In response, Ryan casts Swan Song, targeting Enlightened Tutor. Blair responds by casting Miscast, targeting Swan Song. Miscast counters Swan, and with the Tutor still on the stack, Zach responds by paying 2 life to cast Mental Misstep, countering the Tutor. Tymna's trigger then resolves, and Blair pays 2 life and draws 2 cards. She ends her turn. During his upkeep, Ryan wins his Mana Crypt flip. He draws, laughs this time, and plays a Teleria West, tapped. Knowing what kind of situation he's in, he passes the turn. At the end of Ryan's turn, Zach activates Thrasios. He scries 1 and reveals an Arbor Elf, drawing it. During his upkeep, Zach wins his Mana Crypt flip. He draws and moves to combat. He attacks Ryan with Tymna and Blair with Thrasios. They both take it, and Zach gains 2 life. At the beginning of his second main phase, Zach pays 2 life and draws 2 cards through Tymna. He casts a Llanowar Elves. He casts an Arbor Elf. He plays a Gaia's Cradle. He passes the turn. At the end of Zach's turn, Ben activates Aether Vial. He puts a Starnheim Courser onto the battlefield. Ben draws, does some mental math, and passes the turn to Blair. Blair draws and moves to combat. She attacks Zach with the Frizzard and Ryan with Tymna. Zach jump blocks the Frizzard with Llanowar Elves, and Ryan takes the hit. Blair gains 2 life, and at the beginning of her second main phase, she pays a life and draws a card through Tymna. She plays a Bloodstained Mire. She passes to Ryan. During his upkeep, Ryan loses his Mana Crypt flip and takes 3 damage. He draws and casts his commander, Urza, Lord High Artificer. It enters, and then Ryan creates a construct. He casts a Witching Well. It enters, and Ryan scries 2. Ryan ends his turn. At the end of Ryan's turn, Zach activates Thrasios. He scries 1 and reveals an Assassin's Trophy, drawing it. He activates Thrasios again, scries 1, and reveals a Birds of Paradise, drawing it as well. The turn then moves to Zach. During his upkeep, Zach loses his Mana Crypt flip and takes 3 damage. He draws and cracks his Polluted Delta, pays a life, and fetches up a Tundra onto the battlefield. He casts a Drannith Magistrate. In response, Ryan decides that he has to tap Winter Orb in order to cast Delay, targeting Drannith Magistrate. Blair responds by casting Dispel, targeting Delay. Dispel counters Delay, and Drannith resolves. Zach plays a Morphic Pool and moves to combat. He thanks Blair for the assist with the counterspell by attacking her with Tymna. She takes it, and in his second main phase, Zach pays a life and draws a card through Tymna. He casts a Birds of Paradise and passes to Ben. Ben draws and decides to go for it. He sacrifices his Ranger Captain of Eos to non-creature silence his opponents. In response, Zach casts Assassin's Trophy targeting Ashnod's Altar. It destroys the altar, and Ben fetches up a Plains onto the battlefield untapped. Ranger's ability resolves, and then Ben starts out by casting a Steel Shaper's Gift. He fetches up a Skull Clamp into his hand. He casts Unexpectedly Absent where X equals 0, targeting Drannith Magistrate. In response, Zach activates Thrasios. He scries 1 and reveals a Gemstone Caverns, putting it onto the battlefield tapped. Unexpectedly Absent resolves, and Drannith gets put onto the top of Zach's library. Ben casts a Jeweled Lotus. He cracks it to cast his commander, Teshar, Ancestor's Apostle. He casts a Skull Clamp. Teshar triggers and returns Ranger Captain of Eos to the battlefield. Ranger triggers, and Ben fetches up a Mere Moon Vessel into his hand. He sacrifices Ranger again. He casts Mere Moon Vessel. Teshar triggers, and he returns Ranger to the battlefield again. Ranger triggers again, and Ben fetches up a Memnite into his hand. He equips Mirror Moon Vessel with a Skull Clamp. In response, Zack activates Thrasios. He scries one and reveals a Sylvan Library, drawing it. Unfortunately, Zack doesn't find what he was looking for, which was a Hull Breacher, and the equip resolves. Mirror Moon Vessel dies, Ben makes a colorless, and then he draws 2 cards. He casts a Claws of Gix. Teshar triggers, and Ben returns Mirror Moon Vessel to the battlefield. He equips the mirror with the clamp again. Mirror dies, he makes a colorless, and draws 2 more cards. He activates Ether Vial and puts a Scrap Trawler onto the battlefield. He casts a Memnite. Teshar triggers, and Ben returns Mirror Moon Vessel to the battlefield. He clamps the Moon Vessel, makes a colorless, and then draws 2 cards. The Scrap Trawler triggers, and then Ben returns Jeweled Lotus to his hand through Scrap Trawler. He presents the loop of casting Jeweled Lotus, returning Mirror Moon Vessel through Teshar, cracking Jeweled Lotus, and then clamping the Mirror Moon Vessel, making mana, drawing 2 cards, and returning Jeweled Lotus to his hand with the Scrap Trawler. He now has an unbounded draw and begins to draw his deck. He eventually finds what he was looking for and casts a Relic Vial. He then presents the same loop of recycling Jeweled Lotus and Mirror Moon Vessel, but this time using Claws of Gix to sacrifice the Moon Vessel. Each time he does this loop, Relic Vial triggers, and since Teshar is a cleric, he drains the table out and wins the game. It is Patreon shoutout time. I'd like to give a shout out to Nathan Smith, Elijah Miller, J-Rock, Pyro, Dark, Philip Hickey, Brad Tobin, Sanguina Lindsay, Snarps the Cleft, Matt Wingrove, Delph Driz, Dante, Jared Smith, Baby Jeebus, Rakeko, Greg Babe, Zods, Wayan, Spielrahu, Sparks, CZ, and Nick. Thank you all very much.